maybe also about the workshops available
Okay.
for learning.
Yeah. The support workshops and the hands-on and the other activities. How would you find out about them at present? Do you go to the Learning Lounge? Do you look on them?
Like once I saw on the ground floor in the main entrance, but then and you did not plan your day, so you cannot really attend because you have some other activities. You need to go to the library, you have to do some stuff. So if you would know that today they had this like, I don't know, plagiarism workshop, you would attend it.
So would you be happy to get pop-ups that just told you that and you just ignore it if you weren't interested? Yeah?
Maybe.
Yeah? Because that's actually an issue at the academic staff level as well. We and other colleagues in the university run quite a lot of staff development workshops, but it's quite difficult to get that information out to colleagues that they're happening. You know, if you had a trigger from the diary saying, you know, this is on, but more importantly, perhaps a forward trigger saying there's one sometime in the future, rather than just telling you on the day. But for that type of workshop, probably that information would be appropriate on the day, wouldn't it? Yeah. Maybe even booking capabilities. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I guess it depends how many events or pop-ups you would have in one day or 1 week.
Yeah.
Because if there's a lot of them, you might just have a page for what's happening today, what's happening this week. But if it's maybe just like 1 or 2 or 3 each week, it's fine with a pop-up or someone like pushing it to you.
Yeah.
But if there's a lot of them, I think I would rather go in and have a look if I had time for it and just see what was going on.
Yeah.
Can I just take a straw poll, people? How many people in the room have got what they would think of as a smartphone? A high proportion of people, okay. How many people have actually got a Twitter account? Again, quite small, similar people. Facebook account's probably going to be the same, yeah? Okay. Just interested to know what... we did this with the group last year. It was quite different, wasn't it? It's actually changed in a year quite significantly, the uptake of smartphones, app technology and everything else.
Is there an expectation on this course that you have to have accounts with certain social media sites? So Facebook, you've already mentioned, is being used. What are the other ones?
And Twitter.
And a blog? Is that you
that was
mentioned a
just
blog?
off my own back, really. I don't know
And LinkedIn, I think.
LinkedIn.
Anyone like to speculate on other things they think might happen? Yeah, go on.
With the app as well, the library books, because there's twice now that I forgot to take a library book back because I've just been so busy.
Like you can already renew.
Yeah, so if we had like an app where we could see what books we had out.
Yeah, you can
I
do
don't
that.
know whether you can do it
can
already.
Do that, yeah.
Yeah, so
you can basically access your own library account and get the information about what you've got out and act on it.
I'm going to download it.
It's free, do it.
But you might want to, do they still use the, what's the system called for getting printed copies from the computers? What's it called? You have to have credits for it. Have they changed that? I'm probably talking rubbish, because it's not the way they do it anymore. Okay.
Yeah, you do have to have credits. I don't know what it's called though.
Yeah, but I can't remember what it's called. The system, I don't know. But again, knowing what the credit level was would be useful. You know, I've got a Oasis Oyster card. Sorry, not Oasis, Oyster card. But unless I go up to one of the machines and check it for numbers, I don't know what I've got on it. If you've seen it in the retail industry, consumerism is moving towards your card being swipeable. I think that's another way that things might happen, is that things will be available on cards, on chips on cards and stuff like that. That's just my way of looking at it. Okay, anything else from other people they'd like to see happen or would like to not see happen? Anyone scared about, you know, being left behind or not wanting this to happen? Or well, what about the argument about books against electronic? What if the university said we're not going to have any books in the library anymore? You've got to go and get yourself an electronic device and download it. People like reading books. Some people like touching books. Ooh, careful. There are universities now in this country that are kind of working on a system where they won't have a library. I can't remember what the example that was given to us. Was it Coventry that someone gave us? Where there's a separate university that has no facilities. You can't come in and sit in a computer room. You can't come in and use a library. Everything's based on the principle that they're going to give it to you in electronic form, and you've got to find a means of picking that stuff up. Is that a world that you would be happy to sign up to?
Yeah, I think that kind of depends. Like personally, I wouldn't mind having everything on my laptop, but I know a lot of people that don't like to have it on the computer. They want the actual book. They would actually go like to great lengths to get like a physical book instead of just having it online. So I think that some students won't like that at all, but I'm guessing that most part will get used to it and will actually think that might be easier. Like you won't actually have to go to the library, you can just go on your computer and whatever you want. And it's I'm guessing that you might be able to search in the book, which sometimes I kind of miss, because if I don't want to read the whole thing but I need a specific thing in that book, it would be easier for me to just write in a sentence or a word and come directly to that page instead of having to flip through it.
So your argument is that electronic searching of content is more efficient than going to the index of a book and trying to work out.
But it's not always, yeah. Like sometimes it could be easier. Like for me, I could just as easily have the library available on my computer than in actual books.
Right.
But some people.
It's not actually got to the point where all the really useful textbooks are available in electronic form. I mean, we do quite a lot of work with the people who move into distance education, and we have to work with them and saying, okay, if you're going to assume your students are not ever going to come to the campus, that you're going to give reference material to, that they can actually get hold of it remotely. And some of the classic texts aren't necessarily available as ebooks, but that's becoming less and less of an issue. Any other thoughts or comments or speculation? Anyone really want to go far out and say, what about us all? Does people know what Second Life is? Virtual worlds? Is there a possibility that we're all going to just exist in a virtual world and not ever have to see each other, and we can be whoever we want to be? I mean, there's a kind of an educational argument for electronic. I'll come to you, for electronic communication, allowing people who are not easily prepared to communicate to do it because they're kind of a little bit anonymised. But it also can be dominated by people who just are out there doing it all the time. So there's a whole academic argument about the use of electronic and virtual spaces. Yeah.
It's just, I used to work for the e-learning team of my previous university, and I'm still working there as a teaching assistant in a Second Life course. So I'm kind of, well, let's say, into it. I mean, not working it.
Sell us something.
I'm not a big fan of it, but those are possibilities because it's for a course where students have to spend 1 year abroad, and they have to do this practice course at the same time, so they cannot be present at the university. So that's why they designed this course to make it possible for the students to attend the course once a week and meet in Second Life, basically, and talk about what they experience and also some theoretical things. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
Good.
what is the object? I mean, using this in the
It's well, it can. Well, it's possible to attend a course without being physically there. That's the first thing, and the second is that you can kind of create a classroom atmosphere because you have an avatar in a kind of classroom. You're kind of there instead of, for example, using Adobe Connect or Skype, because that's rather different because you can just sit in front of your computer and listen to it and do something else, or maybe not listen at all, although you look that you are present. But in Second Life, it's a bit more like you have a classroom atmosphere. You can do role plays, for example, of playing different situations in their internships, what they have to do, and stuff like that.
There's some examples that are being supported by our colleagues in the Education Development Unit of use of Second Life for simulations. So there's a public health course that runs in the School of Health and Social Sciences, and Middlesex actually owns some land in Second Life, and they've built up a sort of fictional city scene where there's houses that have got hazards, there's drains that are blocked, there's, I can't think of all the lists of different things that are wrong, and students have to go in and identify and provide solutions for these hazards, and it's used for assessment purposes. So I think for that kind of thing, where that's very difficult to do in real life, it does have its uses. It's very being very well received by the students as a safe environment to practice things as well.
I mean, that's a much better example. And what unfortunately tends to happen in a lot of instances is people use that technology to replicate exactly the classroom and the way of teaching. And I kind of think, what's the point of that? Let it be completely different. It's a bit like, I'm a vegetarian, but I don't want to eat vegetarian crispy duck, thank you very much. Just there's no point in doing that. Just make me something different. And I would argue the same for education. Don't just replicate the classroom, just have a different method of communicating using that technology if you're going to go that far. Not everyone does it, and that's kind of one of the arguments that's going on in the higher education sector at the minute. Not just on Second Life, but also just using different types of technology.
I think in the last point, taking the advantage of using technology geographically, I think it's much better for education in the future. Some places doesn't have geographic access to education, so you can, of course, internet penetration as well is a issue. But I think in undeveloped countries as well, it's easier to access to electronic teachers or institutions than physically. So as long as the teacher staff is able to cover a bigger number of students, it can be really useful.
Okay. A friend of mine's been working in slum areas in Kenya, and he says that the proportion of people who've got one of these is probably higher than in some of the places like the UK. That technology is available to them, whereas the university, the PC, the whole formal education environment might not be. So yeah, definitely an opportunity there. Are there any other concluding points? Is there anything you want to say just before we wind up?
Do you have any questions?
Because if there isn't any further questions, I would just say that we'll probably wind up now, and you've been a really good class, and you get a slight amount of time to your benefit for being a good class by finishing slightly early. So thank you very much for getting involved in the activities. Thank you much for the discussion, and we really enjoyed being here. Thank you.